Jake had been driving an ambulance for 11 years. He'd seen countless strange things, but there was one event that still haunted him. That night, the air felt colder than ever. The streets were empty. Only the hum of the ambulance engine echoed in the darkness. Then a distress call came through. An accident. In a remote area near the woods. The coordinates pointed to a road hardly ever traveled. Without hesitation, Jake drove the ambulance, following the GPS that led him deeper into the forest. The city lights slowly faded from the rearview mirror. As he got closer to the location, a sense of unease began creeping up his chest. Jake wasn't alone that night. With him, Brandon, his partner from the medical team, sat in the passenger seat. They had worked together many times before, facing unexpected emergencies. But tonight felt different. As the ambulance came to a stop, both men stepped out almost at the same time. The headlights lit up a wrecked car at the side of the road. Jake moved in closer, while Brandon circled to the other side, shining his flashlight into the vehicle. "Empty," Brandon muttered, his voice barely audible in the silence of the night. On the driver's seat there was blood, fresh and still wet. A faint trail led away from the vehicle, straight into the forest. Jake reached for the radio, trying to contact dispatch. Only static. He tried again. Still, no response. Brandon pointed at the blood trail. He didn't need to say a word. They both knew what they had to do. The air suddenly turned colder, unnaturally cold for a summer night. Their steps slowed as they entered the forest. The faint sound of insects was gone. No wind, no movement among the trees. But something was there, unseen, yet unmistakable. Jake could feel it, eyes watching their every step. And then, in the middle of the darkness, they found it. A man lay on the ground, his body covered in blood. His breathing was shallow, barely audible. Jake dropped to his knees, checking for a pulse while Brandon prepared the medical kit. As Jake leaned in, the man whispered, his voice weak but filled with fear. "Don't let her into the ambulance." The word sent a chill down Jake's spine. But there was no time to think. This man needed help, now. They lifted him carefully, carrying him back to the ambulance. As the rear doors closed, Jake held his breath. The windows began to fog, despite the warmth inside. Through the thin mist, faint handprints appeared. It was unclear whether they came from the inside or the outside. Brandon swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the side mirror. At the end of the road, a shadow stood, still, motionless. Jake didn't want to waste a second. He started the engine, shifted gears, and pressed the gas. The ambulance sped forward, leaving the forest behind. But something felt off. From the stretcher in the back, a whisper. The man had started speaking again, but it wasn't the same voice as before. This time it overlapped, like two voices speaking at once. The words he spoke were strange, unrecognizable, unhuman. Jake and Brandon exchanged a glance. Their chests felt tight. The man kept whispering, and the voice seemed to be getting closer. Jake pressed harder on the gas pedal, his breathing heavy. The road felt endless, like they weren't moving at all. The trees on either side looked the same, repeating endlessly. Brandon turned to check if the man was still breathing, but what he saw froze him in place. The stretcher was empty. The blood was still there, fresh, smeared, but the man they had just carried was gone. No trace, no sign he'd ever been there. Jake. He's gone, Brandon said, his voice trembling. Jake glanced at the rearview mirror, trying to see behind them. That's when he heard it. A loud knock on the ambulance window. Once, twice. Then came the sound. A scraping noise, like long fingernails dragging across the glass. Suddenly, the ambulance radio crackled to life, loud and filled with static. Unit 34, proceed to the accident site immediately. The man was found in critical condition. Immediate evacuation required. Brandon quickly reached for the radio to respond, but his hand trembled as he looked at the small screen on the panel. The time was wrong. The date was wrong. The call was from a year ago. Jake felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He slammed the steering wheel, speeding up, desperate to get off this road. His eyes locked on the road ahead, hoping to see the lights of the city. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the streetlights appeared. They were back in civilization. The ambulance rolled to a stop in front of the hospital. Without wasting a second, they opened the back doors. The stretcher was empty. No bloodstains. No trace that anyone had ever been there. Brandon took a step back, his face pale. "What did we really bring with us?" he whispered. Jake didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the ambulance, a vehicle that now felt unfamiliar. That night, he handed in his resignation from night shifts. He would never drive into the dark again. Marcus adjusted his security cap as he checked his watch. 10 p.m. His first night shift had just begun. The 30-story office building stood tall and imposing, but at night it felt silent and empty. The hallway lights glowed dimly. Only the occasional hum of an elevator echoed through the stillness. Ben, the senior guard about to head home, gave a quick rundown. Everything sounded normal, until he said, "Whatever you do, don't go to the 14th floor." Marcus frowned. As he read the building's floor list, he noticed there was no 14th floor. After 13, it jumped straight to 15. He almost asked Ben about it, but the man had already turned and walked out the door. The shift went smoothly until past midnight. Marcus watched the security monitors. Empty hallways, dark offices, elevators opening and closing by themselves. Nothing unusual. Until 2 a.m. That's when the alarm went off. A notification blinked on the screen. Motion detected. Floor 14. Marcus froze. That didn't make sense. That floor wasn't supposed to exist. But motion sensors don't lie. His hand moved slowly to the mouse. He pulled up the CCTV feed. A long hallway appeared. Flickering lights, dust thick in the air. It looked abandoned, untouched for years. No one was there. Except, at the end of the corridor, a faint shadow stood perfectly still. Marcus's heartbeat quickened. He rubbed his eyes, thinking it must be a camera glitch. But the shadow didn't move, and it didn't disappear. Suddenly, a soft ding pulled his attention. The elevator doors in front of him slid open. On the panel, the number 14 was lit by itself. Marcus stared at the open elevator. It was empty, like it had been waiting for him. His instincts screamed for him to stay put, but curiosity was louder. With hesitant steps, he walked in. His fingers trembled as the doors closed. The ride felt wrong. It usually took only seconds, but now the elevator moved slowly, as if passing through more than just floors. The doors opened with a harsh, grinding screech. Stale air poured in. Marcus stepped out into an abandoned floor. Old desks and office chairs lay scattered, coated in a thick layer of dust. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting long, shifting shadows across the walls. In one corner, a rusted nameplate hung crooked on the wall. Research Department, closed in 1993. A chill crept up the back of Marcus's neck. None of this made sense. This floor, it wasn't supposed to exist. Then, footsteps, slow, dragging, getting closer. Marcus held his breath. A whisper drifted through the air, barely louder than a breeze. "Why did you come here?" He turned toward the voice. In the corner of the room, someone stood. A man, or something like a man, dressed in a tattered suit. But his face, it was wrong, distorted, like a glitched TV signal, shifting and vibrating at an unnatural frequency. Marcus took a step back. The figure didn't move, but its presence was crushing. The air around it felt heavy, thick. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. He turned and rushed toward the elevator, jabbing the lobby button again and again. The doors began to close. Slowly. Too slowly. Just before the doors fully closed, something changed. The scattered desks and chairs that were suddenly in place. Perfect. Untouched. As if the chaos had never happened. Marcus stared out, holding his breath. The figure was still there, silent, watching him with a face that refused to form. Then, the elevator began to descend. When the doors opened again at the lobby, Marcus nearly stumbled out. The room before him looked normal, bright, clean, exactly as it should be. Ben was there, watching from the security desk. "You went up, didn't you?" he asked quietly. Marcus was still catching his breath. He only nodded. Ben sighed, his eyes holding something unreadable. "What is the 14th floor, really?" Marcus finally asked. Ben paused. A long, heavy silence. Then he spoke. "It used to exist, but everyone who worked there never came back." A chill ran down Marcus's spine. His first night shift was also his last. Maya took a deep breath before stepping into the old hospital. It was her first night shift as a nurse, and she tried to push away the unease slowly creeping into her chest. The building had stood for decades. Some wings were no longer in use. Her senior co-workers had warned her. The East Wing was completely empty, except for a few patients in the ICU. Dr. Colin, the attending doctor that night, gave her a brief orientation before disappearing into his office. "If anything happens, call me. And one more thing. Every room in the East Wing should be empty." Maya nodded. She sat at the computer to check the patient list. Everything seemed normal, until her eyes locked onto something strange. Room 209. It was still listed as occupied, but according to records, that room had been empty for the last 15 years. Around 2:30 in the morning, When the hospital had fallen completely silent, the intercom from room 209 came to life. A raspy voice asked for water. Maya stared at the communication screen, holding her breath. There shouldn't be anyone in that room. Maybe it was a system error, she thought. But curiosity slowly overtook her fear. With cautious steps, she began walking down the corridor toward room 209. When she opened the door, the room was empty. The bed was neatly made, medical equipment arranged perfectly. No sign that anyone had ever been there. But the lights, they flickered, like faulty electricity or something unseen, moving. Just as she turned to leave, a soft beep echoed. Maya glanced at the monitor in the corner. A heartbeat, steady, alive, as if someone was still connected to the machine. The following night, the tension grew thicker. This time, the intercom didn't ring, but when Maya checked the CCTV screen, her blood ran cold. In room 209, a woman stood, her back facing the camera. Long hair covered most of her face. She didn't move. She just stood there, in the middle of the room. With trembling hands, Maya checked the patient list. Room 209 was unassigned. From down the hallway, a patient began murmuring in their sleep. Maya walked over, heart pounding. Eleanor. The name slipped clearly from their lips. Maya froze. That name. She knew that name. Curiosity pulled her to the hospital archives. She searched through old files, digging for anything about room 209. When she finally found it, her hand trembled. Inside the folder was the record of a patient named Eleanor, a woman who died in that room 15 years ago. Maya's eyes widened as she looked at the photo. That face, it looked exactly like hers. On her final night shift, Maya felt something was wrong. She kept hearing whispers, coming from room 209. This time, the voice was clear. But what terrified her most was the voice on the intercom. It wasn't a stranger. It was her own voice. Her body trembled as she walked down the hallway toward room 209. The door was slightly open, as if inviting her in. Holding her breath, she pushed it wider. Her reflection in the window made her stop cold. Something wasn't right. Her reflection was smiling, but she wasn't. Her heart nearly stopped. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room, and she felt something was right behind her. When the lights came back on, a woman was lying on the bed. Her face was identical to Maya's. From the corner of the room, footsteps approached. Maya turned. Dr. Colin was standing in the doorway, his face expressionless, his voice calm. You finally returned to where you belong. The next morning, hospital staff found Maya sitting alone in room 209. She stared blankly out the window, unresponsive to their calls. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I'm not Maya. I'm Eleanor.